Welcome back, and thank you for joining Reb Yankele's podcast. Today's podcast is dedicated in the Nishmas Reb Moshe Reb Shmuel, Heilige Chasam Sofer. As we leave Sukkot and we start the new year, there is something that we noticed. Reb Yankele tells us we start on Shmini Atzeres, Mashav Ruach Hamored Agoshem. We start remembering the fact that we are in need of rain. We are in need of HaKadosh Baruch Hu delivering us sustenance to live. However, when it comes Matzah Yom Tov, we do not yet start V'sein Talumot Levracha. We do not yet start begging for rain. And the reason for that is, as is well known, because Klal Yisrael still had to go home from Eretz Yisrael, still had to go home from Yerushalayim, from the Beis HaMikdash, after being Oile Regel. And therefore, we did not want to put the burden on Klal Yisrael when they're walking home to having to deal with the rain and the mud. And we therefore do not start V'sein Talumot Levracha in Eretz Yisrael until Zayin Cheshvan. And in Chutz La'aretz even later. However, the question is obvious. Before Pesach, when Klal Yisrael heads to Eretz Yisrael, and hopefully in Mirz Hashem, all of us this year, Klal Yisrael is also spending time on the way and spending time traveling to Yerushalayim. So why do we not stop saying V'sein Talumot Levracha Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so that Klal Yisrael would not have to deal with the rain? And Reb Yankele tells us the answer is so obvious. When Klal Yisrael is heading home from Yerushalayim, they can be bothered by rain, and they can be bothered by obstacles like mud and so forth. But when Klal Yisrael is heading to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim, to be Mekayim the mitzvah of being Oile Regel, to bring the Korban Pesach, to bring the Korban Chagigah, to sit in Chaburas and eat the Korban Pesach together the night of Pesach, nothing can stand in their way. No rain, no mud, no obstacle, nothing will bother them. That's Klal Yisrael. A Yid that has a goal, that has a destination, that knows he's heading into a mitzvah, that knows he's reaching a higher level of Kedusha, a higher level of closeness to Hashem. A little rain doesn't stand in his way. And that's the lesson that we need to take with us as we leave the Yomim Noiroim from Rosh Chodesh El till Simchas Torah, and we're heading into a long winter. We need to know that we're heading into Shabbosim, to Rosh Chodesh. We need to know that we're looking forward to a Chanukah, to a Purim, and to a Pesach. We need to remember that we have a goal, we have a higher level that we want to reach, and that we could reach, and that we should reach. And when we have that in mind, there is nothing that can stand in our way, then nothing that can hold us down. As we mentioned, today is the Yortzeit of the Chasam Sofer. So we will say a short word from the Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer tells us in this week's Parsha, in Parshas Beraishis, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Adam and Chava not to eat from the Eitz Hadas. And it sounds from the Psukim a little bit, especially from the words from the Nachash, where he was telling Chava that if she would indeed eat from the Eitz Hadas, she would know Toiv and Ra, she would know good and bad, which sounds, from the Nachash at least, that she's right now missing out on something. Even more so, it sounds like HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavayochu was trying to hide something good from the humankind, was trying to hold back something. The knowledge of Toiv and Ra, the knowledge of good and bad, which the Chasam Sofer, of course, tells us is impossible. But the Chasam Sofer tells us, what a profound idea. A person needs to know that indeed when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the humankind, we were at such a high level that we did not see good and bad. We could only see Toiv. We could only see good. Because indeed, in reality, in the real world, everything that Hashem does is toiv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want us to eat from the Eitz Hadas, because then we would be lowered into a level where we still see good and bad. And indeed, once Adam Rishon ate from the Eitz Hadas and he could see good and bad, now it had to be followed up by not eating from the Eitz HaChaim, because if he's going to live in the world, in a shallow world that he could see good and bad, this has to be limited so that he can move on and that we can all move on to a world again where we only see Toiv. This unbelievable, amazing word from the Chasam Sofer is something that we have to take with us on a daily basis. And remember that in reality, there is a vision that we need to focus on and think about and look forward to, where everything in reality is Toiv. Because in reality, everything that comes from a Toiva HaMeitiv has to be Toiv. So yes, we need to live in this world where there is Toiv Ra, but at least to remember in the back of our mind that in reality, everything is Toiv. And as we finish the first episode for this year, let me leave you with this thought. The Mefarshei Torah, almost all of them wrote a Hakdama to the Torah. They wrote how they perceived the Torah, what their view of the Torah was, and what their intention was in writing a Pirush on the Torah. Probably the most prolific commentator on Kol HaTorah Kula is Rashi HaKodesh. And it seems that Rashi skipped that step. He skipped on writing a Hakdama on the Torah. But maybe not. Rashi, in the first Rashi on the Torah, asks a question. Why did the Torah not start with Achodesh Hazeh Lochem? Why did the Torah not start by telling us that there is a year, a Jewish calendar, and there is a Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and that comes with mitzvahs and certain things that you should do? And Rashi's answer is interesting. He says, because when Klal Yisrael will eventually go into Eretz Yisrael, maybe the Umas Ha'olam, the Goyim, will say, wait a second, they're stealing our land. And that's why the Torah told us, no. There is a story here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and therefore He can give it to whoever He wants. He can take it to whoever He wants, whenever He wants, back and forth all the time. And that is the reason that the Torah starts with Beraishis. But possibly this is Rashi as Akdama to the Torah. Rashi tells us the vision of the Torah is a guide, and therefore maybe it should have been the case that when a Yid could start reading and he opens the Torah, the first thing he should see is, what should I do with my day? HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem, what is the first mitzvah, what is the first commandment that I can accomplish? And then indeed was the question of Rashi, that was Rashi's kasha, why doesn't the Torah start telling me a physical, technical thing that I could start doing? This is my guide, this is my life, it should tell me what to do. But Rashi answers that the Torah is telling us even before one knows what to do in a physical, technical world, a person has to make it clear, the vision has to be crystal clear. Hashem has given us this world. Hashem is giving it to us in every moment, and Hashem can take it away at any moment. The first thing we need to know is internalize this message to know that everything is Hashem. And then and only then can we start having technical mitzvahs that Hashem is giving us to save us. And as we indeed see that even before Matan Torah, the Torah is giving us certain mitzvahs just to keep us alive. Because of course we need the maisim, of course we need the physical to do mitzvahs. But Rashi's Akdama ala Torah is telling us to internalize that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you for joining me today. I want to wish you a wonderful Shabbos, a healthy winter, and we should be able to internalize everything that we were zoiche to in the Yomim Neiroim and take it along with us, looking forward to the Yomim Tovim, the Shabbosim, the Rosh Chodesh that are coming, and to be able to Mirz Hashem this Pesach, to eat min azvachim and min apsachim in the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Have a wonderful Shabbos.